Thank you for having me. Thank you for holding space. And thank you for being here, each of you. I was sitting and I was listening to Mark and just sitting with you and feeling the joy of community. It's a very, very, very precious thing. And I think, and Mark, you were mentioning, if you feel lonely, bless yourself. And I thought, yes, and there is this resource every day, right? The coming and sitting in community. It's very, very precious, especially in these very challenging times. So friends, I want to invite you to to arrive. We're going to sit quietly a few minutes before I share a little teaching on this week's parasha. I want us to arrive, to make space. If you feel like you need to stretch anything, really to open your body before you come to stillness, to roll your shoulders, to do a big, big, big stretch, feel free to do anything you feel like doing right now. Kind of free your body. Sometimes I feel it's very helpful to come and to start by opening before we come to stillness. And then to really sit with intentionality. To sit like it's the most important thing in the world, because it really is right now. The only thing that matters really, how I'm going to invite this body to sit right now. And can I embody the dignity that I want to see in the world? Just by the way I sit. I am going to speak closer, even closer. Voila, I hope it helps. I'm going to do this. So I want to invite you to sit in a way that embodies dignity. The dignity you want to see in the world. Sit embodying groundedness. Perhaps with the next out-breath, inviting the weight of your body to drop down a little more, to be a little heavier. Taking roots in this moment. And because we've entered in the month of the trees, I want to invite you to really feel your posture, your body right now as a tree, because that's what we are. Ki ha'adam etz hasadeh, the Torah says. The human being is a tree of the field. And so feeling really the connection with the earth. We start by grounding this body. Feeling your chair or cushion, the floor. Sitting solid, stable. Grounded. Be the groundedness you want to see in the world. Perhaps be the groundedness you need. Resting on the earth. resting on the earth and reaching up towards the sky. Really feeling like your spine and your torso is the trunk of this tree that you are. The crown of the head reaching up as if you were lengthening in stillness. As the trees are absorbing from the air and then really giving back oxygen. Feeling this really interconnection with the air, the giving, the receiving of the breath. We'll sit quietly, a couple more minutes, just arriving. And perhaps you're noticing already more space, more quiet. Or perhaps you're noticing that your mind is much more agitated than you thought. And whatever your experience is right now, really the invitation is to not try to change it. Just like a tree isn't trying to change the weather. A tree just stands here and offers itself and offers its shade and its oxygen and its leaves and its fruit and its trunk, its solidity, its grace. So really may your meditation be an offering today. Not just doing good to yourself, but also to the world. Let's take a breath in, friends, and out. I'm going to share a short teaching. I'm not going to share actually my screen. You will have the soul sheet, which you can have after. You can look at it later. I want to invite you to really stay present And so you can open your eyes or you can keep them closed and just hear this little Torah before going back into our contemplation for today. We're opening Parashat Bo, which means really come. And it's often translated as go to see Pharaoh. As God instructs Moshe to go and see Pharaoh, to ask him again to free the Hebrew slaves. And reading this parasha this year in the context of the war in Israel, in the context of the captivity of the hostages, I couldn't but really feel a resonance. This kind of painful back and forth between Moshe and Pharaoh's heart who is hardened, and God who sends makot, who sends plagues to his people to try to make him really humble himself and accept to free the captives. It's really a painful resonance. And it's very easy to read these stories in a way that is Manichaean, black and white, good and bad. These are the bad ones and these are the good ones. And I happen to be on the good side. The Hasidic masters really invite us to read Torah in a different way. Last year, I was studying the Me'orenaim with a wonderful group, and some of you are here, and I'm glad to see you. And the Me'orenaim was inviting us to have another reading of Egypt, saying, it's not just a country. Egypt as a state of being, as a state of mind. And the state of mind that it represents is Galut Hadat, exile from awareness. And this is what happens when our hearts are closed, when we are overcome by fear, pride, envy, resentment. And all of these emotions are so human. They're so human. But the invitation of the spiritual path is really to do this work of tikkun midot, of healing, repairing our character traits. Not just to feel better, but to actually really cleanse ourselves from these klipot that are not our true nature, these layers that have been added by difficult life experiences and conditioning. And so the spiritual practice in a Jewish perspective, but also in a Buddhist perspective, it's this idea of that you're not trying to gain something more, you're rather trying to remove something superfluous. And this week, the Hasidic master, the Mea Shiloach, is really teaching the meaning of the plagues, of the makot, as a parable for really tikkun midot, for this work of musar, of ethics, which is intimately connected to Hasidut, to the Hasidic path, to the way of the pious. And each makkah comes to kind of mirror a midah that we need to cleanse, to clean. And just as Egypt isn't a country, this idea for the Hasidic master that Pharaoh is none other than another aspect of ourselves. It's not always so pleasant to see it this way. But once we recognize the inner Pharaoh, we can really free ourselves, really, from the shlita, from the kind of control of the dark side of us. And so the first thing is to recognize, to see, to bring awareness, to bring attention, and then to set an intention. And I'll take just an example. The three plagues he's mentioning are really, the locusts and choshech, obscurity, darkness, and then makat bechorot, the death of the firstborn. And he says it's really coming against really bad tendencies, yetzer hara, that we have. But two of them are really arrogance and pride. And often this is what prevents us from opening our hearts, from breaking open. And so this is an invitation for us. Maybe this is a time that we see ourselves judging others very harshly. Or maybe we find ourselves stuck in a situation. And the invitation is to look. What part of me right now is stuck because of pride? Is stuck because of some arrogance? And arrogance sometimes just means I don't want to give up. I'm living in this pattern and I suffer from this pattern, but I still want to keep trying. I have a lot of arrogance in me. I can see it in the things that I keep doing, that I don't want to give up, and I know I should kind of fine tune. So I'm saying this so that we don't kind of split from ourselves and say, oh, arrogance is really bad and something else. And when we can really hold up the mirror and say, wow, I have this too. And where do I have it? Then we become more meduyakin, we become more precise, and then we can actually really cleanse ourselves and come back to our true nature. And that's Yetziat Mitzrayim, that's freedom. So let's sit, my friends. Let's sit with just that intention of just really sitting in truth, just like a tree. A tree isn't hiding anywhere. It's not going anywhere. It's just showing its plain truth, standing in between earth and sky. Through storms and blue sky and rain and winter. And it just stays there until transformation occurs, until the new blossoming comes. So let's just stay still, sit through our experience, whatever it's going to be today. I want to invite you to close your eyes again if they were open, to take a deep breath. Coming back to your roots. Again, feeling really this body sitting, feeling the contact and the texture of your chair or cushion. Regrounding, taking roots again in the floor and underneath in the earth. Feeling your breath moving in and out of your nostrils. Just like a tree feels the air through their branches and takes in and gives back oxygen. keeping just sitting in truth, grounded in your body, and really bringing the gaze of awareness to your experience, to your thoughts. Just like a tree, I stay grounded in my body, in my roots. And just like a tree, I offer my presence to the world, breath after breath, moment after moment. I offer my most beautiful presence for the last minute of our seat. A beautiful breath in, beautiful breath out. Moment to thanking ourselves for making this time, this precious time, to stop and pause amidst the busy, to choose this freedom. Trusting that actually when we are calmer, then there is more space. And thanking each other, even if we'll stay together for those who can stay, but just thanking each other for sitting together in community in these difficult times, especially. And let's say Kaddish with Rabbi Mark.
As always, thank you so much, Mira. We end and seal our practice today, as we do each day, offering an opportunity for those of you who are in mourning, observing a yard site. If it's your custom to join in Kaddish, you're welcome to do so. If you're not reciting Kaddish, to, as Mira was just saying, to be present for those who are, offer your support, your compassion. You can put the name or names of anyone you're honoring today when you recite Kaddish in the chat now or after we recite the Kaddish. Thanks, Andrew, for sharing the words on the screen. And if you're reciting them, I invite you to join me. You can rise in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yitkadal, Yitkadash,
Shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Kayekon, Yomekon, Kayet Israel, Agala, Ankari, Ru, Amen. Shmei Rabba Mevarach, Lamei Maya, Barach, Shtabach, Ar, Imam, Say, Yitzar, Len, Halal, May, B'zchut Shab, Eila, Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata, B'chata V'Nehemata, Amiran Ba'alma,
Amen.
Yesh Lama Rabba Min Shemaya, Hayim Aleinu Yisrael, Amen.
Amen.
Shalom B'Mamav, Uyaseh Shalom, Leinu, Israel, Yokol Yoshei Vel, Mimru,
Amen. Amen.
And friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks so much to our teacher, Rabba, Mira, and Neshama, Weil, for leading us once again so beautifully and gracefully in our practice today. And as always, you're welcome to stay on for a conversation with Mira for about 15 minutes. If you like, you can just use this time and space and the container of this community to continue to sit in your own space, sit with us. And if you're leaving us now, we hope you'll join us tomorrow. We'll sit into Shabbat tomorrow at our usual 12:30 Eastern time. We'll be led tomorrow by Chloe Zelka to sit into Shabbat together. So we hope to see you then or sometime soon. Just a reminder next week to join us for that full week series led by Rebecca Schisler on practicing with the elements for Tu B'Shvat. And today's sit was such a beautiful segue into that as well. So if you have a question you'd like to put to Mira, please put it in the chat. I'll keep an eye out for that. You can write question in all caps. And makes it a little bit easier to see the questions. And thanks as well to Harry Gilboa, who is also on tech support today with Andrew. Welcome aboard, Harry. Good to have you. And also many, many thanks to you, Deborah Fertig, for sponsoring our practice today in memory of Rabbi William Velvel Zev Fertig on the occasion of his 5th yard site. Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be a blessing. Mira, thank you so much, as always. Just a treat to get to sit with you. I have a question, but before we got to the question, I actually wanted to give you an opportunity to just say a few words maybe about what you're offering these days, about this hashkata meditation practice. Anyway, gives you a chance to do some promotion here of what you're offering, because I know people here appreciate your teaching and your presence so much. And maybe, Andrew, if you can put the link in the chat as well. Want to say a few words about what you're offering these days?
Thank you so much, Mark. It's funny, I feel more like practicing than talking about what I do, but I'll just say
I just want to take advantage of this
no,
moment.
I really appreciate.
We have these people here.
No, it's very, very kind of you. It's just an offering of Hashkata meditation by the Piazetz no Rebbe, and then Musar work with the Mesilat Yesharim, because Hashkata is so conducive to Musar. That's what it's about, Tikkun Midot. And I think what's special about it is that it's really, it's not Jewish mindfulness. I do also, as you know, Jewish mindfulness, but this is really indigenous Jewish meditation. And it's an opportunity for people who can't sit at these times to sit really earlier, because there are several times So we meet 7:30 a.m. East Coast and then West Coast several times a week. So it really is kind of an opportunity for people to have like start the day with meditation and then do the work of Tikkun Midot. And it's become a beautiful community. That's all I can say. And then there's Torah Insights, which is reading the parasha with the Mea Shiloach this year with the Hasidic master, and it's a delight. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's great for us to have an opportunity to spread word about those offerings and about the Torah that you're spreading and this hashkata, this quieting practice. And I would just want to note thanks and welcome to Risa, who joined us for the first time today. Always wonderful to have people join us, and hope you'll join us frequently. So let's talk a little bit about the practice. One of the things you said, Mira, that struck me as really important, and maybe new for many people, is what you said about what the Hasidic tradition does with this tendency for us to fall into black and white thinking, into dualistic thinking, either or them or us. That it's really rooted in a non-dualistic understanding of reality and the divine, right? And so when the Torah speaks about these characters, Moses and Pharaoh, not just talking about like, the good guys and the bad guys, but actually they're prototypical representations of being itself that are in everything, including ourselves. So the idea that we have Pharaoh in us, for some people, that may be kind of a new thing, a new idea. I want to invite you to talk a little bit about that and about if we're feeling resistant to that idea, like, what are you talking about? I'm not, there's no Pharaoh in me. What does that mean to say that there's a Pharaoh in all of us? And why do we resist it?
Yeah.
And how could we change our attitude towards that? Because it seems like in many ways, maybe that's one of our core issues in the world today, right? Is the projection of the Pharaoh onto the other.
Yeah.
It's a big topic, I know.
Question.
It's a big
no,
life.
I'm just trying to think how politically correct am I gonna be, or how much I'm gonna talk about it, like, because it is sensitive, because it's very it's very unpleasant for the ego. Let's put it this way. But then it's up to you. It's up to us. I mean, to each of us, it's like, what am I looking for in spiritual practice? And this is a question I'm asking for each of you, friends who are here with us. It's a real question. I just see a message asking me to speak louder. Can you hear me well, Mark?
I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you pretty well. People can raise their hand.
Okay.
Why don't you raise your hand? If there's an
Voilà.
issue, please raise your hand and we can crowdsource this question.
Yeah. And I'll just say, friends, I have a voice frequency, I have a voice tone that just doesn't hear well for some people. So I apologize in advance. They're really, my computer is at the max, my mic is here. There is only so much I can do. Also, I just want to say, yes, you can say Kaddish for your sister who passed in June. It's a year. So this is an important question. I think, like, before I even start answering your question, Mark, like the question before the question is, what am I looking for in spiritual practice? And I think it's so important to be honest with ourselves. Because if what I'm looking for is to feel better, I may not like, right, this idea of, oh, you have a shadow side, you have a Pharaoh inside, you have a tyrant inside of you, I have a tyrant inside of me. And yet, only when I started looking, like turning the mirror to myself and seeing, oh, I have this, I have violence, I have forms of, just because I don't shout and beat people up, it doesn't mean I don't have a form of violence. It doesn't mean my heart is not closed too often, right? And only when I can have the courage and the humility, because that's what it takes, to see this in me, then I can start actually growing. And so that's the question. What are you looking for in your spiritual practice? Are you looking to grow and to really transform yourself? That means giving yourself to the fire, going through that fire of truth and seeing things that are not pleasant to see in me, right? So if and I think it's a question we should all ask ourselves at least once. Why am I practicing? And I can tell you, I am practicing, and that's what just came now is actually Foucault. Um, Jean-Michel Foucault, a French philosopher, was saying it basically, and I'm saying this on purpose because it's interesting sometimes to have a definition outside of the spiritual world of what spiritual practice is from philosophy. It's agreeing to be transformed by truth. Isn't that so beautiful? And that's Foucault. But if you look at the Hasidic definition of spiritual practice, really, it's itpashtut, removing the layers, just like in Buddhism, peeling the onion, right? This idea of accepting to go through the fire of truth, truth being the seal of God.
Mm.
And I can tell you the teachers and psychologists that made me grow up the most were not the people who were always saying, oh, poor you, it's so difficult. It must be. Yes, we do need compassion sometimes, and skillful means is actually knowing when someone just needs compassion. Okay. I just want to make that clear. But the
Great.
people who've helped me the most are the people who called me on my S, excuse my language, when I needed to be called on it. You know, for me to actually, I think about it sometimes. My whole spiritual practice is about opening my eyes and opening my eyes and like kind of like going into my blind spot and this blind spot and this blind spot. And it's not easy. It's not easy. But, you know, if we really thought the world is divided in the good ones and the bad ones, and I'm always on the good side and, you know, and I'm fine, but you're, you know, my friend here is not fine and my spouse here and my kid and my colleague. And then no wonder everything is stuck, right? And it's painful sometimes. It really is painful. But only when I look at myself, when I look at my inner Pharaoh, when I decide to change myself, then something can change.
Mhm.
I could go on and
So
on. Stop for
that's, I mean, yeah, this is a huge, well, this is a huge topic. And Peter wrote in the chat that Jung, this goes very well with that Foucault, that Carl Jung said that every victory of the self is felt as a defeat by the ego. Um, and so victory of the self is, you know, feeds into another thing you said, which is that we're not trying to create a new self, but actually realize our essential self, right? And to peel away what you just said, the pashtut, to strip away the obstacles that are preventing that self, the deeper self, the truer self, the essential self, the soul, we would say, right, to be revealed. And that's the midot work that you were describing. So this is really the spiritual practice. Far, you know, it's the opposite of a spiritual bypass. It's actually like, you know, clearing out the arteries, right?
Yeah.
Not creating a roundabout around it, but actually opening the space for that to go. We only have a few minutes, but maybe you can say a word because it came up. You were referencing the Mehashiloach, and people can take a look at the text itself about how the makot, the plagues, map onto the particular midot, like the darkness, the death of the firstborn, um, relate to in some way, you know, either linguistically or otherwise, to a trait that needs to be freed up or redeemed,
Yeah.
right?
I'll just give you one example because he's done that for also for the previous parasha. Like he goes through each plague and kind of gives the meaning either by play on words or by quoting another pasuk in the Torah. And it feels really good to see meaning into the plagues, like meaning in terms of tikkun midot. So for the darkness, for the choshech, he's mentioning Mishle that says that basically when we are arrogant, it's as if we were extinguishing our own light.
Mm.
And I love this. And it's true, maybe you've noticed it for yourself, but when I see people who are really humble, but for real, they're luminous, they shine. And people who are kind of stuck in their arrogance, or when I'm stuck in my arrogance with my husband, I lose my light,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So that's the darkness. Like we create our own darkness so often.
That's
I'll just say
beautiful.
that. Yeah, I'll just share something with you.
I don't know what you're talking. I don't know what you're talking about, but I will assume you're right.
I'll just share in a minute because it was very touching. I heard the testimony of a freed hostage Israeli woman. And she had had an intuition that something really bad was going to happen to her. She thought it was going to be a terrible illness. This is what happened to her. And so
Mm.
she read the Psalms, and she kept reading a psalm, the same psalm that a rabbi gave her. And it kept talking about war, this psalm, and she didn't understand. Then she got taken in Gaza, and she was captive there. And this woman, when she was talking, she was very luminous. She was not blaming, she was not playing the victim, she was just sharing. And she said that one of her captors said to her, I don't like you. I hate you. I don't like you. You're my enemy, but I can't help it. When you're here, there is more light. And that's because this woman was so humble and was so grounded, and she was reading her psalm, and she was connected to God, and everybody could see her light. So that's all I want to see. It's a responsibility to shine our light in the world, in whatever conditions are our life's condition at the moment.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. We're at time. I just wanted to, we won't have a chance to answer Lori's question, but she raised a great question, as always. What about the positive aspects of that inner Pharaoh that we might welcome? And I might say, maybe you could say just a couple of words on this, that that the inner Pharaoh represents the ego, that the ego is an aspect of the self that needs to be honored as well. In other words, it doesn't need to control everything, but it needs to be attended to in some way.
Yeah.
And so it serves a purpose. It protects us. The ego protects us. It keeps us safe. If we didn't have that, we would, be, too vulnerable, right? I don't know if you want to add a word or two to that, but I think it's worth ending there with that.
Yeah, no, I think it's great if you take the angle of the ego. Absolutely, the ego is important. We have Talmudic, stories about this. And another aspect as simple as that is we need the challenge so that we can grow beyond our limitations. That's also one function of Pharaoh,
Mm-hmm.
to make us grow.
Right.
You don't, you have to free yourself from something. That's Yetziat Mitzrayim. So,
All right, Mira, as always, just a huge gift. And it gives us an opportunity to collectively send our love to you and to everyone in Israel. And hope you can feel that continuing to flow your way and to everyone there. And it's wonderful for us to share this connection with you and have the blessing of your teaching. So we hope you should be safe and well, and continue to feel the love flowing in your direction. Okay.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, everyone. We hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for being here, as always. And if we don't see you tomorrow, wishing you Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to you, Mira, and Laila Tov to you.